Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to tonight's joint town board meeting with the Yorktown Town Board and the Yorktown Coalition on Community Safety and Engagement. If everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll begin our meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you could all please join me in a moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers those who we've lost this past year, as we have now crossed the 1-year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic reaching the state of New York. Keep in our thoughts and prayers all of our frontline workers, our doctors, nurses, grocery store workers, our sanitation workers, of course, our first responders, our police officers. We also keep in our thoughts and prayers the bravest men and women in the world, the men and women serving in our military overseas today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, good evening. My name is Matt Slater. I'm the town supervisor for the town of Yorktown. This is a joint meeting of the Yorktown Town Board and the Coalition on Community Safety and Engagement. We are joined by Councilwoman Alice Roker. We also have with us Councilman Ed Lachterman. I see that we're also joined by Westchester County Legislator Colin Smith, which is great to see. Good evening again, County Legislator. From the Coalition, we have with us Pete Lanza. We have Jim Poulin. We have Liz Rivera and Paul Cirillo. We have Rabbi Robbie Weiner, Rosemary Panio. And of course, we have with us the Chief of Police of the Yorktown Police Department, Bob Noble. And on behalf of Yorktown for Justice, we are joined once again by Dax Armstrong. Again, this is a joint meeting. We have released on February 18th the report generated by the Coalition, From Great to Greatest, a roadmap for the Yorktown Police Department. This has been on the town's website for a number of days now. This is all part of our compliance with Executive Order 203, which was handed down by Governor Cuomo last June. This process, I think, has been a very good one for our community. I think it's made us have some very important dialogue, made us reflect on our community and on our police agency, which was the directive of Executive Order 203. We've had a number of meetings since we began. We've had 6 meetings in total on October 8th, October 20th, November 12th, November 19th, November 24th, and on January 6th was our last meeting. Again, the focus of EO 203, as outlined by the governor, requires any municipality with a police agency to perform a comprehensive review of current police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices, and develop a plan to improve such deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices for the purposes of addressing the particular needs of the communities served by such police agency and promote community engagement to foster trust, fairness, and legitimacy, and to address any racial bias and disproportionate policing of communities of color. We have had several presentations from the Chief of Police. We've had several listening sessions where we've solicited comments from the public. Those comments, again, were provided by testimony, oral testimony. We also received written testimony, all of which was shared. And I just want to briefly go over the report that was released for those who may have not had a chance to review it. The police data, which was again provided to us by Chief Noble, among the data that he did provide, he provided 53 data slides, which documented police activity from January 1st, 2016 through June 13th of 2020. And among the key data points for that period were 293 use of force incidences, of which 180 or 61.4% consisted of dispatching animals that were suffering. Now, that 293 number comes at a time when there were over 1,500 arrests made. And so that's the data that was presented by Chief Noble. Regarding personnel complaints, the Yorktown Police processed 9 personnel complaints during, again, that same 4.5-year period from January of 2016 to June 13th of 2020. Civilians initiated 2 of the 9 complaints, and the remainder were internally generated. And lastly, what we also learned of our police department, among the many things, but we've seen a significant increase in training. In 2016, again, looking at that same 4-year period, we saw 6,617 hours of training. And then as of 2019, over 10,000 hours of training, nearly 10,500 hours of training for our police department. And the Chief of Police, Chief Noble, went over all the different types of training in detail that members of the police department receive. As for results and recommendations,
Oops.
am I back? and for my next trick, as for the recommendations, the CCSE concluded to revise the personnel complaint policy to require a quarterly report from the police chief on personnel complaints. Currently, or previously, was annually that this would happen, or any disciplinary actions initiated by the department. And this is recommended that this policy be implemented in 2021. It was also recommended to beta test body cameras with a report on the tests for the town board by April 30th, 2021, to collaborate with Westchester County to restore the mobile crisis unit to better deal with emotionally disturbed individuals, to improve public understanding of the role the town board members play as acting police commissioners, to introduce annual anti-bias and de-escalation in-service training, to post the police complaint policy on the department's website and enhance the integration and information sharing on the town's website, to acknowledge that racial profiling is prohibited, and to continue community outreach initiatives, their outreach initiatives, diversionary, and accreditation programs. Those are the recommendations. As part of the process that was set forth in EO 203, a public hearing to solicit input from the public based on the report is our next step. That's why we are here tonight. And so I want to, again, thank everyone for participating. I want to see if our town board members have anything that they'd like to add.
I just want to thank everyone on the coalition for their work and all those that inputted through the community, and of course our police department in their open-mindedness and input to all of this. So thank you all involved.
Ed, that was well said. So I'm just going to second what you said.
You take a vote.
I'd also like to open it up now for the coalition members. If there are any coalition members who'd like to say a few words.
Good. Ready to hear what's out there.
Sorry?
Said I'm ready to hear what everybody else got to say.
Okay.
It's good. It's been a good time.
Absolutely. How about Chief Noble? Anything you'd like to add, Chief, before we open it up for public comment? Oh, Chief, you're muted. Chief, if you can unmute yourself. There you go.
How about now? I'm unmuted?
Yeah, good.
Very good.
Like I said, thankfully my daughter had her laptop for me to utilize. But no, I just like to thank everybody for, you know what, I'll speak at the end when we're all done. But, you know, the process was, you know, very respectful. I think, you know what, I mean, I know I listened, and I'm very thankful that people were able to listen to me and to the to just be open about the policies that I shared, the data that was shared, and that it's easy. This process was good for me to be able to kind of communicate about what the good work that our police department does in the community. And you know what, it turned into a positive for us because like I said, I've got a fantastic crew. The men and women in the Yorktown Police Department really do an exemplary job in the community. So with that, I'll take it away. Whoever's up next.
Well, let me apologize and also recognize our town clerk, Diana Quast, who has been working tirelessly as a partner on this. She's taken all the minutes and has helped organize these Zoom meetings for us. So again, to our town clerk, Diana Quast, and her staff, a big thank you from the town and the coalition for all you've done. Appreciate that. I see that we're also joined by Steve Ronco from the DA's office. It's good to see Steve.
Everyone, sorry I'm late.
Diana, do you have a list, an ordered list? That's usually how we've done these for the public hearings.
No, but I can go through because we let everybody in. So
Okay.
normally but I'll go through and we'll pull them one at a time.
And forgive me, but I just for the record, you do have the photo of the notice that was published for this meeting. Perfect. Thank you. That was published in the Yorktown News.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, Diana, if you want to let us know who
So
testify. Right.
why don't we start with Mike Matone?
Great. Hey, Mike.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for allowing myself and fellow members of the public some time and extend our appreciation as residents to the commission for putting together a great report. I did get a chance to review the report and just had one question for both coalition, the town board, and Chief Noble. Coming from the private sector, it almost reads like a strategic planning session in terms of how you're looking at the future of the department. And my question is, how is the town board, the coalition, the police department looking at utilizing this document not as a single standalone document, but as a starting point to continue to make positive, actionable change to live up to the goal, which is from great to greatest. Looking at potential integrations with other policy from other municipalities and the county, and are there regular checkpoints in which we're going to look at the effectiveness of the recommendations that have been made?
I'd be happy to jump on. Mike, good evening. You know what? I'm usually pretty good with names. Did you email me last year about National Night Out, if my memory serves me right?
I did, and I'm still waiting for the check that you used my son on Facebook eating ice cream. So we're still waiting for that. Waiting for that 10% from SAG.
You'll be happy to know that is in the planning stages right now. We're looking to implement that. So I know you offered to help out with that. I got a pretty good memory. So the first Tuesday in August, I got Jimmy Martirano from Parks lined up. I think we're going to run up to Granite Knolls and try to make that happen. But I think we're gonna take a stab at that to, like I said, from great to greatest with all of the community outreach that we do. We're going to try our hand at that. And, like I said, I always say I have a great crew. The PBA president, Tommy Nadorsky's on here right now. And, we're looking to try to really, really make this happen. And Granite Knolls will give us a nice venue, a nice open area that if you want to bring the kids, they can run around. And then people, it'll be well attended by the police department. And a lot of different people from a lot of different walks will have a chance to mingle, talk to us, ask us questions, and kind of follow up. Because, while Zoom, I wish I had bought stock in Zoom before COVID. There's nothing better than meeting everybody face to face and putting a face to a name and actually being able to talk to somebody, even if it's 6 feet apart. But we're looking to do that. And to answer your question a little bit from a police perspective, we looked at Executive Order 203 and we tried to make it, fit the Yorktown community and what could we do to engender a little more, for the people who, may not trust us as much as others are maybe a little bit leery of us, we try to really take a good look at our policies, post policies both on our website, and invite the town government to put it on their website as to, what our use of force policy is, how we use use of force. The data shows that we de-escalate and non-escalate, all the time. We do an excellent job of that. And then putting our personnel complaint policy, up on our website and the town's website. I think, it only serves to give people the understanding of how, if they have a complaint, it will be investigated, and to kind of show them like, hey, look, we're not hiding anything. If you have a complaint with our service, we do want to know. And what I will say, and what I have said, is that, the town board, Alice, how many people you've sent a few people to me, that didn't quite understand why what happened the way it did, or they had some questions. And I think, she can say, or anybody that sent anybody to the police department, whether it was to speak to me or one of my staff, they left there with an understanding that they had a fair shake, that there were sound reasons for, what we did. And if there was something that maybe wasn't right, we looked into it and we gave it a good faith assessment. And by putting these policies up online, I think it shows a commitment that we're trying to do the right thing. And sharing that data, it shows there's no police brutality in Yorktown. It's just it's not there. The data shows that, and to me, that's one of the you have to be able to demonstrate that to a community, and it's there. And the documentation, the how we show that we document a use of force, and we have we send these copies now up to DCJS and New York State. So. It like I said in the beginning of this process, for me to be able to communicate and speak to this to the public, I'm sure there's people on here that really didn't realize that we do that. And, that's kind of what I'm trying to, what my agency is trying to do moving forward. I've got the buy-in, like I said, I've got a great staff, and we're all just looking to do the best that we can, for the community. And as I've said, we want to be your partner. We don't want you looking at us like the enemy. We want to be your partner. We want to, make Yorktown as great as we can. And we just want people that when they see a police officer to be able to be comfortable, come up to speak to them, engage in a conversation. And I think what the coalition has come up with and the suggestions that I've made, I think it's a very positive step and something that's going to continue.
Thank you,
Thank you for that. It's much appreciated, and feel free to reach out to me to, help out with National Night Out. I don't know if anyone from the coalition or the town board can also speak to, the things that will be done from your perspectives to make sure that we continue to check on the progress of the recommendations that have been made, and how we will look to implement any additional recommendations that Chief Noble makes as he goes along this journey, and any additional best practices to help continue to improve the already well-run police department here in Yorktown, according to the data provided by Chief Noble.
Can I just add something? One of the best things, Mike, is that very often the chief will be with us at a board meeting, not with us since we're on Zoom, and he's there to update not only the board but the community about what's new or what's happening. But I do want to say that I think this kind of conversation that we're having needs to continue.
Yes.
I think that the community, I think that we just become a better community by sharing with one another. Mm-hmm. So I really hope that does continue.
Well, I wrote some comments because I wanted to evaluate everything that we talked about. So if I may, what I looked at was, have we met the objective of the governor's 203 mandate and beyond? Is Chief Noble satisfied with the report? Does he feel it adequately addressed all concerns, town board, our committee, the public, the police department? But I'm really concerned, will there be follow-up from time to time to determine if the suggestions made are actually implemented? And are all of our elected officials, town, county, state, and federal, engaged to achieve our goals and maintain the goals that we've set in order to safeguard our community? And of course, we want to maintain everyone's rights and respect everyone. I think this is an opportunity. I remember Alice at our first meeting said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we have an opportunity to turn this whole thing around by perhaps presenting from time to time a video to and I'm sure that Alice is going to be tapped to help with this, given her experience, so that we could reach our residents, especially seniors who are home and are watching more TV now than they ever have. But we could demonstrate what our wonderful police department does, what the proper behavior is, and how you should react in different situations. So I think this is something we might want to think of, board members, Mr. Supervisor, and everyone that's involved in this. So that's just my take on it. I know that I would watch it, and I would learn a lot, just like I've done through this process.
Those are great points, and I think that Chief Noble, we've already had some conversations with Tom Ciangela about additional videos. I think Councilwoman Roker was a part of that conversation. Additional videos for the police to further or to continue this public education of what our police department does, how it operates. But the data tracking, I think, is an important point. I think it's important, for the public here, because even though it does get sent to DCJS, and again, as a reminder, that we are lucky, so lucky to have a DCJS accredited agency. Just because that data gets sent to DCJS, it doesn't necessarily mean that it gets disseminated to the residents of York. So that may be an opportunity for us to further share that data on an annual basis to show that we continue to be in compliance with that accreditation.
Well, it gave me another reason to be proud to live here, frankly.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Any other comments from the board or from the coalition members on that point from Mr. Matone? No? Great. Mike, thank you. Good points. Diana, who do we have next?
Amy Sabino.
Great.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Amy.
I'm good tonight. So I'm here representing Yorktown for Justice, and I'd like to start off by saying that I'm extremely happy to hear about the testing of body cameras. That's a wonderful thing. But I have to admit that I was extremely disappointed by the rest of the report. The report isn't really offering any new information. All I'm seeing are Chief Noble's ideas, these same ideas that we've heard at every listening session repeated. It's going no further than that. It mentions abstract goals with no words or timeline on how to achieve them. Reminding people that profiling is illegal is a very nice sentiment to hold, and I'm sure it is one that we all agree on, but it is not an action point. Profiling will not cease to exist simply because a report said it is prohibited. We need a why and we need a how to get to that point. There's also no indication that the town considered comments by the public, such as individuals who said we should have a civilian review board. Most glaring to me is the general absence of any data. Without data, how are we supposed to know where our department might need help? The public needs to have an avenue for complaints through a citizen review board. There was no mention of, and data on demographics collected and published.
So we can pick the rocks up and place them where they need to be.
Once again,
than the speaker.
Once again, as is a common theme with this report, there's been no effort to do any of these things, and no timeline which indicates when they might occur. In this vein, I would love to hear from the chief on what the review process of the body cam test is and what he would need to see in order to make a recommendation to institute use of them full time. I and many others are also curious about the mobile crisis unit implementation from the county. How will the town and department move forward with advocating for the reinstatement, and how would we deal with mental health crises without it? Anyways, to close, we spend a lot of time in our listening sessions saying our police department is accredited. I can't count the amount of times it has been mentioned, and while it's wonderful, I have to admit that a terse report like this is not the way I would expect an accredited department to act. Compare our 5-page primer with bullet points to the Putnam County Police's 194-page report. They address all kinds of things, including making a greater effort to hire more people of color to help diversify the department. It's an actual report, and even if we don't agree, there was obviously a certain amount of research, enough to put something substantial. I'm simply not seeing that same attention to detail from Yorktown, and I know we can and must do better. The only reason I'm being so intense today is because I know we have the capacity to do a lot better. Going forward, I really expect a lot more accountability from the coalition on that, and we'd like to hold them to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Any comments from the board or any comments from the coalition members?
I can jump in.
Sure, Chief.
Yeah, Amy, for the beta testing of body cameras, we expect to submit a report to the town board by April 30th. And we have beta tested 3 different vendors. We're trying to see what is easiest for the officer to use in the field, what will give the best vantage point to the public, to us. Basically, price and demonstrated view from the vantage point of the officer. What is easiest for us to use? How can we get that to our DA for discovery purposes? There are a multitude of things that are going into it, but that's what we expect to be able to present to the board by April 30th. Also, we are joined. I'm on the Westchester County Chiefs of Police, and we actually have a recruiting effort right now to try to reach out. We've partnered up with the Westchester Guardians, the Hispanic Law Enforcement Association, and Women in Law Enforcement to try to assist Westchester County in the recruitment effort of people from all walks of life in every community to take this next test that's coming up. But that's more along the lines of a county, but we did recognize that, and we are jumping in on that. There is a video that our agency participated in. It was just filmed the other day. We hope to get it out in the next week or so that it'll drive up interest and recruitment in the upcoming test. As far as timelines, we said that we train de-escalation and non-escalation. We've done that for several years, but now we've committed to emphasizing that annually. And also implicit bias. We had that training last year. We're currently having it this month in March, and we've committed to doing that on an annual basis. And we're also going to try to reach out to have a speaker who specializes in that come and to the police department and speak to us, about that. But sometimes things get lost in the shuffle of 194. That's a lot of pages, and you focus on things that are meaningful and what are meaningful to the Yorktown community. I thought we did that. We're not going to please everybody. I know that. I don't please everybody in my department. Not everybody's happy with me there sometimes, but there was a good faith effort. If we fell short in your eyes, we're going to continue to try to do things as best we can. But the effort was there, and I thought we focused on important items that would be beneficial to the Yorktown community. And I want everybody to feeling good. And you had some good people on this coalition that made some great suggestions, and and listen to our suggestions. But we'll keep moving, trying to get it right. But I think this is I think it was a job well done. It may not be a long book or pages and pages and pages, but sometimes less is more when you get right to the point. And as far as you said what I put into our policy as far as the racial profiling, there was some question about data, and with traffic stops, we use a New York State form called TRACS. It is New York State Police use it. What we would need to do, because there have been some people asking, can you track this? Can you track? We need the state to actually put the fields in there and have them self-populate, because, when you're on a car stop or you're talking to somebody, you want to get in and out of that especially a car stop. You don't want to be out on a vehicle stop any longer than you have to be. And if you stood on the side of the road with cars whizzing by you, you'd have a new appreciation for that. But if the state can kind of put their money where their mouth is and actually update tracks so that my officers can actually populate these fields in a one-stop shop without having to guess, what ethnicity people are and ask additional questions, that would be beneficial on a state level. You mentioned the mobile crisis unit. Yes, that was a county initiative back when I was a police officer. And I used to have people from the mobile crisis unit respond to calls for service. And, if it was dangerous, we were definitely needed. But after talking to a person for a minute or two, they'd be like, okay, we're good. You can wait outside or wait out in the driveway. And that's what we did. But we got away from that. And that's something that's on a county level. And that's what, like I said, Councilwoman Roker and, Legislator Smith, they listened to me on that, and they thought it was a good idea to try to make that happen. And I know they're trying to reach out to the county on a county level to bring that back in, because, as long as you don't defund me, I'm looking for all the help I can get from my officers. And, I just shared over the weekend a few reports involving emotionally disturbed persons that my job handled, I think, flawlessly with the coalition. And you know what? We're a jack of all trades. We may not be the ones you want coming to your house for certain calls, but we're the only ones out there 24/7, 365, that when you pick up the phone, you've got us and we're coming to try and help. So anybody else that wants to jump in?
Well, I think we talked about funding, and we reviewed ways that we could possibly address that, which is kind of what I meant when I said that all members of government have to be involved, town, county, state, and federal. We need to see where we're going to get the funds to do some of the things we talked about. So we did talk about that. We also talked about the mobile unit and, of course, the education of the public, which we've been talking about all along, is very important. I frankly, maybe I shouldn't admit this, I've never been stopped by a policeman. I don't want to start now, but we should know what the criteria is. Our children and our grandchildren should be shown, not just told, how to act when something does happen. Not going to be 100%, nothing ever is, but I think we're moving in the right direction with a lot of the suggestions that we've made. I hope so anyway.
Can I just say that a lot of the information, the slides that the chief presented would have bolstered this report because it had data in it, and it had very important data in it. So I understand the need for data, and we were able to see it. But the other thing I want to just add is that very often people don't, if they don't see it, they don't know it, they don't believe it. And what I've talked to you about, and I've talked to the board about, is that we need to give Tom some new jobs, and one of them would be videoing the three body camera, taking a look, having the chief and a police officer there doing whatever they do and explaining why they've made a decision to perhaps go with this one rather than another one. Everything we talked about here, we can do on video and people can see. Right. And I think that perhaps seeing very often is believing. And for those who are not going to believe anyway, it's okay. But I think that that's where we are today. I learned a lot from those slides that the chief had, where he went through everything they do in the department. So yeah, I'm not sure how you translate that to the report, but I think there has to be a way because the information there was really important.
As part of the appendix, the data slides will be transmitted to the state.
Perfect.
And they will be part of the final report, as would be the meeting minutes. Yep, Rabbi, I see you. As will be the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes themselves are, I believe we said, what Clerk Quast, about 150 some odd pages of testimony and conversation.
Yes, that's good.
That bolsters the report as well, just in regards to length and detail. But all those pieces will be part of the final report that's transmitted to Albany. Yes, Rabbi.
Two things. One is we've heard now a couple of times the idea of the coalition having further responsibilities, and so maybe it's the public is aware of certain responsibilities that I'm not aware of, which could definitely be true. But it's my understanding that the coalition's job was to only offer recommendations, almost like a subcommittee of the town, to say, this is what we think would be important for our town. From that point forward, we then we inform the state of our recommendations, but then the town board and the police department are empowered to do these things. And as far as review and follow-up, I never saw that as our purview. And yet, if it is, I could be completely wrong. But again, to circle back to the end, to circle back to the beginning, I should say, is I thought that our job was to just offer some suggestions based on information. That leads to the second comment that I want to make. And this we've heard not only from, I think her name was Amy, who spoke to us just that we're all kind of responding to, but we've also heard from others talk about data. And I'm glad that it already was mentioned that I'm not quite sure, and I would love to know, what data do we not have? I know that the report literally didn't list that data, but I would like to hear from any person who has this opinion that they would like to see more data. What's the data that's missing? Because exactly what the chief said, it's my understanding that even as it relates to directly racial profiling and directly to issues of questions of racism in the police department, the chief told us exactly what he said tonight. He told us that a couple of months ago, that it's going to become a standard operating procedure that they ask at the stop, or that they put in the report at the stop, the race of the individual and more information than what we already have. And he's shared with us a ton of information, a ton of data on what happens in violent in ports of where action needed to be taken and all of these things. And all of that data is there. So I would love to know, for my own information, what's the data that individuals would like to see in the report that's not already a part of, say, the appendix, or a part of things that we've learned about.
Good point.
Hey, Rabbi Rob, I just want to jump. We're not asking people at their traffic stops or anything like that. That was a misunderstanding. What we're waiting for, hopefully, is that the state mechanism, the uniform traffic ticket that we use, that other police departments use, is going to be changed. It's just a simple adjustment that the state has to make. And then by scanning the license, it self-populates into the format. This way, we can't make a mistake. And we shouldn't be in a position in a controlled environment. Yes, there's a state report. It's called a 30 form. That is where you get ethnicity and things like that, but it's in a controlled environment. A traffic stop is not the place to be asking those type of questions, or on a stop in public. You wouldn't, it's
right. But it's my understanding, based on what you just said, is that it is the hope at least on your part, is that the state's going to change how this stuff gets.
Yes.
That the information could be accumulated, and so the specific data that I know I would love, that I remember you even talked about, was like the form is going to be changed possibly, and that could really benefit the data collection on race. I remember that.
And I think it'll speak very well for us. Like I said, I mean, I think it'll be a benefit, for my job, for everybody. I mean, I think that any data that's out there right now speaks to the job that we're doing it very well. And that we're doing it, in an accountable and transparent manner. I've got great people out there that are out there just looking to protect the community, and they're not profiling. I said it early on. I think, if it was going on, you'd find that cop out of a job, and then, myself and my command staff would probably have to take a walk as well. I mean, it's just, there's no place in law enforcement for that. And my guys know that's where I stand and where my lieutenants and everybody stands. It's, getting into the Yorktown Police Department and becoming a Yorktown police officer is not easy. It's not easy to land this job. And yes, we're going to step up our recruitment efforts, but, we're not taking this guy's friend and this guy's pal, because that's when things go wrong. And thankfully, you have a town board. The town boards that I've worked with, that when we go down with a recommendation, they're not saying, well, I know a guy and I know this guy. That doesn't happen. You're getting good quality people that are out there doing the job for the right reasons. And, like I said, I took it right from the DOJ. This is what we put in our statement in our general rules. And it's right. It says any police initiated action that relies on the race, ethnicity, or national origin, rather than the behavior of an individual or information that leads police to a particular individual who has been identified as being or having been engaged in criminal activity is prohibited. It's in black and white. Like I said, if anybody were to be profiling out there, number one, it would get out there. There are no secrets anymore. And number two, like I said, there's no place in law enforcement for this. And the men and women in my agency know that. And I think you've got lieutenants, you got the PBA president on here as well. I think they would agree. Jim, I think one of the last meetings you asked, is there racism in the police department? That was a question you asked. Well, what I did after that was I sent an email to my agency. And knowing that people may not be comfortable coming to me with an answer like that, I invited them to go to the PBA president, Tommy Nadorsky. And Tommy, I don't think anybody came to you.
Not one.
Okay, but we put it out there. And like I said, that was even part of the community coalition. Jim put it out there. I was a little incredulous, but I said, you know what? I got to ask. So I sent the email out very directly, very bluntly. If anybody, felt that, there was racism that existed in my agency, or felt at least been uncomfortable, harassed. I mean, what you're seeing right now, with the governor, anything. And like I said, knowing that they'd have trouble coming to me, go to a PBA representative and tell them. And you know what? Like I said, this was a great process, but what I can't say enough is that we've got a great culture in our building. We've worked hard to develop that. That's why you see us at community outreach functions, and a lot of these men and women, they're there on their own time. I don't even have to pay them. They come out and they mix it up with the public, and they're out there doing the right thing. And yes, I think the data will speak well for us. I'm hoping the state, will take the steps to incorporate the mechanism to take that data in, and we're happy to share it. I can go on all night, but I'll stop there.
I would go on to say, though, that this may be a good point, though, to amend the report specifically on this point, because if we're already telling the county that we'd like to see the mobile crisis unit, re-implemented, then maybe we should, and since it's going to the state and the state's going to review it, it should also be included then that we want the state to update its forms so that it's automatically populated, so it's an automated process. And that gets the data sharing that where everyone, I think, is pointing to. So, that just seems to me make a lot of sense. So that may be one of the amendments that maybe the coalition, the board, would be willing to include.
Matt, is Colin on with us?
Yes, he is.
Well, we talked to him.
Mr. Smith? Are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you again. Welcome back to Yorktown. Second time in a week. I know that we've spoken about the mobile crisis unit, correct?
Yes, we have.
And you mentioned it actually as part of your report to the town just this past Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And we spoke a little bit, I should say, I was having a conversation about it earlier today at one of our committee meetings down in White Plains as we go through our task force recommendations. And, the consensus is that everybody feels there needs to be more done with respect to this issue of bolstering law enforcement with the resources they need, or that will help them better able to deal with these issues surrounding mental health. And as the chief was talking about before, whether or not it's something that the police need to handle or better handled by mental health professionals. Now, I wasn't involved with politics or with mental health or police back when I guess the mobile crisis unit was really in full swing. But I think, as the chief had alluded to, at some point it essentially lost funding. My understanding is, and that's what happened. And so the county executive has indicated a commitment to finding ways to sort of, whether it's restarting what we used to have with regards to the mobile crisis unit or some other permutation of that. But certainly the need is one that, as is clearly is recognized here in Yorktown, is recognized across the county, and will be one of those issues that we will be looking to address right away once we get through the process of getting our report to Albany, so we don't run afoul of the governor's April 1st date. And as was mentioned, I have been having conversations with yourself, Supervisor Slater, with Councilwoman Roker, as well as with Chief Noble on more than one occasion specifically with regards to the mobile crisis unit. And so it's something that whether it's the mobile crisis unit per se, but dealing with this issue is something that is definitely on the it's something that we're looking at in White Plains as well as other places, and just we'll be addressing it in short order as we get through this final phase of the task force process.
Does it help, if I can just ask this, and I apologize, but from your standpoint, when you're when you're down in working with the county government, does it help when a municipality's report reflects something like restoration of the mobile crisis unit?
Oh, of course, because it just it goes to bolster the need, but also the idea that this is something that is not just specific to one area, one location, one municipality, and it gives the county executive's office and the board of legislature more impetus to want to address the issue sooner than later. And again, like I said earlier, the county executive has indicated a commitment to committing more resources to this issue. How that's going to ultimately look, remains to be seen. But it's a conversation we can continue to have between us as electeds and officials, and also one that we can have with members of the community, because you can never have too many good ideas, in my opinion.
Right.
And there's some good ideas that have been discussed this evening, and the report has some really good ideas. And just I don't want to speak out of turn or take too much time, but I do want to say, because we've been addressing the same concerns at the county, the report is the recommendations that consist that are in the report are recommendations. They're the result of the deliberative process undertaken since the governor's executive order. That report itself is not prescriptive. It is not a legislative or policy document. It's not even necessarily an endorsement of anything contained therein. I'm talking strictly from what I perceive to be the legal standpoint of this process. But it most definitely is the strong indication of what the community feels the direction in which, or that at least it should reflect the direction in which the community, in collaboration with law enforcement, with elected officials, with all the stakeholders, that they should be moving in with respect to this issue of police reform and reimagining. And so from that perspective, it's kind of like a roadmap. and how that roadmap is utilized ultimately, is to be determined, and what priority is placed on which of the recommendations is to be determined. But it's not the end of the conversation, and it doesn't lock us into anything or prohibit things being added down the line. And I think it's, as has already been said, it's good to just continue to have these conversations with the community, because that's how we'll make progress in the long run. So thank you for indulging me. I'm sorry if I
no, thank you.
I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Could I ask a question of the legislator?
Certainly.
I just want to know, have the other areas in your district, I believe your Peekskill, Cortland, and part of Yorktown, have they discussed the mobile unit, to your knowledge?
So it's the issue itself has been discussed. The mobile unit specifically, not that I haven't had any conversations on that point specifically with the Peekskill city officials. Certainly there's one that the members of the Cortland coalition or board I have discussed with. So it is whether it's the mobile crisis unit per se, or like I said, just the issue itself. It's one that I think clear and especially as we're looking now after a year of being under the the pandemic, mental the mental health component just in general is one which is we're all going to be struggling to deal with as officials, but or as a community, I should say. But as it pertains specifically to the interaction between law enforcement and mental health professionals, it is certainly one that I would just assume that practically every municipality is having this conversation, and the county, certainly the Board of Legislators, is ready and willing to have to further this conversation and find ways to partner with the municipalities to bolster these efforts and address these concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you again, County Legislator Smith. It's great to have you on, and great to have your insight on this, as I know that you've been working diligently on the same effort down county. So great, again, to have you here. Also want to point out that we are now joined by Councilman Tom Diana. Councilman Diana, how are you?
Very good, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a late service call, so I ran back.
That time of year, no problem.
Yeah.
Town Clerk Quast, you want to give us our next speaker?
Jay Copstein.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Copstein.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. Chief Noble, how are you? I have 5 very quick comments. First, just for everybody's edification, the executive order does not include all police or law enforcement entities. The governor intentionally left some out, mainly the ones that he's responsible for. Secondly, for Yorktown and the Yorktown Police Department, what has been developed is basically a solution looking for a problem. Third, we're talking about cameras and equipment. Equipment purchasers do not need this type of an approach. Equipment purchases require an adequate and sustained funding stream. If you don't pay for it, you're not going to get it. The utilization of a mobile crisis unit is a good idea. The issue becomes one of funding. Hope the legislator is still listening. Similar to other types of mental health responses, let the state mandate that health insurance companies or Medicaid cover the cost of the personnel in the response. And finally, I communicated with the supervisor on the rewording of the 4th bullet in the report.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Copstein. Any comments from board members or the coalition? No? Okay. Town Clerk Quast, can you go on to the next speaker, please?
Alain Gilbert.
Great. Mr. Gilbert, how are you tonight?
Well, thank you, and I hope everyone else is well too. And I want to thank all the participants. I've been watching all your meetings. This is the first one I'm sort of commenting on, only because it is a public hearing, and I wanted to see what was going to be the result of the work product. And on the most part, I am satisfied with the product itself. I want to thank you, Supervisor Slater, Chief Noble, Ed, Alice, Tom, Diana Quast, for all of the effort made here. I bring a perspective as a former town supervisor, working with the police in that capacity. I also bring a perspective as a former town judge in making the comments. I also want to thank the officers that are here, Officer Foley, Detective Nadorowski, and one of the first key component that I would like to address is the mental health, the crisis and unit. I think it would be wonderful. Again, I agree actually with what our the speaker who just Jay Kopstein, who just spoke about funding. Funding is fundamental. As the former town judge, I dealt with individuals for those years, and actually, I bring a perspective actually coming from having set up the Bronx Supreme Court mental health court. I was keenly aware of the issues back years and years ago. This isn't a COVID-related. COVID can certainly exacerbate the issue, but this has been going on for years and years and years. And unless we give proper funding to this, we're not going to solve anything. And what was very frustrating, as the judge has the power, as the police have the power, and I brought this to the attention at the time to the police department. They were aware of it, but I think I hope I helped make it even more obvious that under mental health law, section 9.45, the judge or a police officer has the ability, if they see someone in their presence who appears to be a threat to themselves or others, they then the police officer can directly take someone off the street without judicial intervention and take them to a crisis unit in the hospital if under that law. And in instances where I was arraigning defendants and I saw, I suspected an issue, I would then direct the police officers before I even continued with the arraignment to bring an individual down to the crisis center. The frustrating aspect to all of that was there were many, many instances where I heard that basically the person was brought to the crisis center, was given equivalent to 2 aspirins, observed for a couple of hours, and then sent on his way or on her way, without the true analysis and observation necessary to deal with those situations and that individual. So we have to, what I'm trying to say very quickly is we need action rather than words in those instances. And as a result of what I'm saying, one of the comments made earlier about, I think part of the recommendations of your report should at the very end say that the coalition should not be disbanded from, I'm not talking about an oversight of the police, but I'm talking about let's have regular meetings of the coalition to make sure that there's follow-up, that we know that our recommendations and your expectations are met. And by having these regular meetings, you can have input from the public if at time to time. This shouldn't be a one-stop or a one-time analysis. I think it's important to be a continual process, not police oversight necessarily. I don't want to say that we want to have, necessarily, but just so that you know that your recommendations now are being followed up on. And lastly, I noticed that there was a recommendation, and it's being done by the police with diversity training. And one thing I would add, again, when we set up the mental health court and the drug court in Bronx County, we had coalition meetings like this and stakeholder meetings, so to speak, where we brought in people with all different views and diverse views. And one of the things that is in terms of diversity, which is very important, and I learned, was that we should also be concerned with cultural diversity.
Yes.
When an officer, there are certain people from different cultures where, for example, you can't look someone in the eye. That's deemed to be offensive, or speaking. They don't necessarily will speak in a certain way or be very quiet because that's their cultural way of reacting. That should be cultural diversity should be part of the diversity training. And if it isn't, it should be included. That's my recommendation. And that's basically, again, I want to thank all of you for your hard work. This isn't something you give up your time, you give up your energies, and we all do it for the good of the town. But I want to thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
Thanks, Lonnie.
We'll definitely check on the cultural diversity to see if that's to ensure that's included.
Thank you.
Cultural diversity, they're teaching it in schools. It was an actual full course I had to take at my graduate level. So it's, because you're not just you can't possibly know every culture.
Right.
But the best is to able to learn some of the, at the very least, the basics. So you know when that person's not looking at you. And, so that's certainly definitely a good way to go.
Yeah, I think things like that are good for everybody. Since we all live here.
Absolutely. Go on to our next speaker.
John Campobasso.
Okay. Mr. Campobasso, good evening. If you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I hope everybody's well and doing well. I just, John Campobasso, I don't know really the forum that you hold these meetings, so lifelong resident of Yorktown. And I just heard about this meeting recently, and I think these things are great, but I think noble. Maybe I was in the police department for the wrong reasons. I was definitely never accused of anything that I didn't do. But I just have to tell you, we actually owe our police men, women, a big thank you. We live in this great community. You keep us safe. I'm raising my two children here. Everybody I love lives in this community. While I think that there has to be progression for sure, and mental health is huge. For those who don't know, I'm involved heavily with the youth of our community. I deal with approximately 1,000 families, 2,000 kids, donate some of my time to the Parks and Rec Commission. But it is kind of upsetting to be, while we are trying to get better, for a department that I believe has been probably flawless, and a person who stands up, meeting after meeting, and we thank you. I feel like, you're almost trial here, for lack of a better term. So just as a regular resident, I would like to thank you, your police officers. Please stay safe. And I think as, we give you all this information and all these suggestions, I would say that as parents, we could probably do a lot of good and teach our kids when they get pulled over what to do. It should not fall all on the police. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous to say, that, you have to have I understand you have to have training for everything. It starts at home. So if our kids are running amok and running wild, and then to tell the police, you're going to be on trial, you're going to be guilty before, you're going to be in the newspaper. These men and women leave their houses, not only in the city and all these areas, but a town like Yorktown, they're not 100% sure they're going home that night. So the respect that I have for the police, all the first responders, but the police here, I caution people that are speaking, and again, I understand it, but, just understand they have a very difficult job. I'm not a police officer, but I've been listening here for a half an hour, and again, progression is good, but we owe you thank you as well. So that's all I really wanted to say. And I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Campobasso.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Go to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Sarah Wilson.
Great.
Sarah.
Good evening, Sarah.
Hello.
I think this is our third night together.
I know. We've got to stop meeting like this.
Last night on Zoom and now tonight. We have to stop meeting like this.
Well, like John, I'm just a regular resident who's interested, and I do appreciate the work done by the committee. And just in terms of my reaction, I'm going to echo what Mike and Rosemary and several other members of the public mentioned. My initial reaction when I saw the report was, my goodness, where's the rest of it? And I understand it's a summary and there'll be all these other documents, but, I have seen some of the other reports that have been issued by other communities, and, they integrate it all into this one big document, which makes it easy to kind of search the document, get to where, a particular topic, you can get to it without having, a half a dozen attachments. And the title, I think our Yorktown Police Department is great indeed. I don't have any interaction with them one way or the other. But the title "Great to Greatest" kind of implies, I think as Mike said to begin with, that, this gets us to the end. We're there, it's ultimate. And, as several speakers have said, it's a continuous process, right? Continuous improvement. We can always be better. And so that, that title, maybe think about changing, because it implies that we're the greatest now. And, I know that we're very proud of our accreditation. I believe that while, it's a low percentage in New York State, I think it was 29%, within Westchester, there are 43 municipalities, and I believe I heard that 50% of our communities' police forces are accredited here in Westchester, which is wonderful. It's, we're happy to live in Westchester. But I think there's a lot of good information sharing that can be done. If we've got all these great accredited police forces within our county, there are lots of opportunities for collaboration and best practice sharing between the forces. And Chief Noble mentioned that he's provided input at the county level, which is great. And, it should be a two-way street in terms of both giving and getting, that kind of best practice information. With respect to the annual anti-bias and de-escalation training, I think it's great to have that, but it's also important to have it be conducted maybe by somebody outside of the department. People, of course, there's a cost, and you have to have the funding for it. But there are benefits to, having somebody outside of the organization come in objectively to make that presentation. And then lastly, I just echo the the comment that there be ongoing conversations and reviews about this as follow-up, as and maybe it's not this particular coalition, because as Rabbi Wiener said, you didn't sign up for that. But maybe there's another group that could be formed in some way to continue this conversation on a regular basis. And I think that was all I had as comments.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions or comments from the board or from the coalition? None? Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Sarah.
Thank you.
Actually, you know what? I did want to state just in regards to the info sharing, I agree with you completely, but I do want to just point out that the chief is an office. You're an officer, correct? Obviously, you're an officer, but an officer within the Chiefs of Police Association for Westchester County.
Yeah.
And I do believe also that the Yorktown Police Department is part of the Affiliated Police Association of Westchester, which includes, I think it's close to 50 other law enforcement agencies, Detective Dorsey. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes. Sorry, you're on mute.
Yes.
So that does provide information sharing with those organizations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are there any other organizations that either you or the police department are a part of, regional or otherwise?
Yeah, we're part of national organizations, at least I am, that share information on a regular basis when it comes to training, updated laws and things like that. So we disseminate that out on a regular basis. We are constantly doing webinars now in the police department to address the bias training and de-escalation. We're constantly doing it. It's just not us doing that training to ourselves. We're getting it from other agencies and other sources.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that point. Okay, we'll go on to our next speaker.
Sergio
Esposito, good evening.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
Good, Sergio. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about my interactions, my relationship with the Yorktown Police Department. But first, I want to thank all of the participants and the members for doing this very important work. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I also want to thank Chief Noble and the Yorktown PD for keeping us safe. I wanted to share a letter I received some time ago as a result of a baseball fundraiser. We do a baseball fundraiser where little kids from John Campavasso's Yorktown Athletic Club, most of the time, play the cops. And it's really cute. But the PD both organizes and participates in it. And to date, over $40,000, thanks to the efforts of the Yorktown Police Department, has been raised. And the money goes to help children with life-threatening diseases and their families. And we send them to a place called Camp Sunshine for counseling and try to make them feel normal. And I got to tell you, if I had to do it on my own and I didn't have the help and enthusiasm of the Yorktown Police Department, it wouldn't be over $40,000. So I received this letter from one of the recipients because we sponsor them and we send them up to this place called Camp Sunshine in Casco, Maine. And it goes like this. We would like to extend special thanks to your organization as well as the members for sponsoring our family to Camp Sunshine. We thank you very much for your extraordinary generosity. The generosity is from the citizens of Yorktown because they're the ones that sponsored and donated and everything like that. But please keep up the fight. Our angel, and I redacted her name for privacy, was born with a very rare genetic condition which has confined her to a wheelchair since she was born. Her situation and ultimately ours was made even worse when she was diagnosed with kidney cancer for a few months ago. Coming to an environment such as Camp Sunshine has not only rekindled our hopes, but has also re-energized our resolve to fight this battle up to its very bitter end. Through you, we can once again lift our beliefs that the world, and Chief, I think they're speaking about you here, still has people who possess good character. I think they're speaking about your department, Chief. That of caring and putting smiles on the face of the less privileged and crying faces of those in pain, emotionally and physically. The people we met and all the staff and volunteers at Camp Sunshine presented a full force of inspiration. I want to personally thank the entire Yorktown Police Department, because your department has made all of that possible. And you guys never asked any questions. You just were all in. I also, again, want to thank the fine folk of this coalition for a job well done. The report and this coalition has made the community even better. I think we got a great community. I think it's even better now. There's always room for improvement, and this coalition and the report shows we are all willing to evolve. Chief, at the chamber, because we were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusivity, right? At the chamber, we use a great DEI consultant. Her name is April Francis. She's not expensive, and she's just absolutely wonderful. I'd be happy to forward you her information. And again, I want to thank everybody for a job well done. Thank you,
Sergio.
Sergio?
Yes.
I said no. I just said thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the coalition? No. We'll go over to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Marissa Reaganese.
Great. Hi, Marissa.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
Good. I just wanted to say really quickly that I think that it's really clear that we have a lot of great people here in Yorktown who are dedicated and care about the town. And Chief Noble, I believe that you are one of them. And I just want to reiterate that police reform isn't personal. You know, it's about policy. And we just can't depend on, you know, the benevolence of individuals in order to ensure that our institutions are functioning well. We really need policy measures in place. And I just wanted to say that.
I agree with you.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Marissa. And that's why I wanted to put them online so that you could see them, the important ones that are out there. So we'll continue to try to, best policies and practices, because not only do I want that for my men and women who go out there and serve the public, but I want it for everybody out there in the community. That's how we're at our best. So I agree.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the members of the coalition? Okay, Marissa, thank you. Our next speaker. All right, we'll go to our next speaker. If Diana, if you can give us our next speaker, please.
The next one I have is Dax Armstrong.
Okay. Hello, Dax. Mr. Armstrong, how are we doing today?
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey, Dax.
So forgive me if and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was the report or the summary of the report. Is it just a summary of the report that was released?
So
is that the full report?
The full report would just include the appendix, which is listed on the bottom. So the full report, and again, I do offer an apology. In hindsight, obviously, the data slide should have been included, and the meeting minutes are still being finalized. But the correspondence and Chief Noble's recommendations, which is included in the correspondence, will all be included in the final report that's transmitted to the state of New York.
Okay. So you'll forgive me if my memory's a bit fuzzy, because I read the report right as it was made public, and so that was some time ago. So if I paraphrase, if I'm incorrect, I would definitely appreciate, corrections or any of that sort. So I definitely did read the report as it came out, and I guess the only thing that I was
questioning or wondering about was part of the summary at the end, which spoke to the body cameras, and the recommendations of the coalition. And there was some wording in there that said that it's something to the effect of, and correct me if I'm wrong, although we'd like to implement the body cameras, we're concerned about funding due to COVID. And I would have liked to have heard more about what those concerns are, what the amount of money is that we're looking at, or where we are with that beta testing. Because I guess what I was left with in reading that was, we'd like to do body cameras essentially, but we can't at this time. So, if I'm wrong about that, please correct me.
That doesn't speak for me. So I
don't think anyone's saying we can't do it this time, but we're going to be waiting for the report. Chief, do you want to update us on that body camera beta testing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we wanted to get you the report by April 30th so that we can fund and plan next year's budget to get these body cameras, as soon as possible. So with April 30th, that'll give us plenty of time. We want to identify the best product that we can use, that my people can go out there and use with confidence, and that also instills the confidence of the community.
Right.
With that, we got to figure out the cost as well. That's what part of the presentation is going to be to the board once we're done with beta testing the cameras. We want to see what works for us. If there are two that are similar and there's a cost differential, these are the type of things that we want to bring to your attention as a board so that you can plan for it, budget, and then when we announce our budget for next year, I fully expect the cameras. I fully expect the cameras to be in there.
Right, and if I could, what it states regarding the funding, first off, it says that many of the policy-related matters can and should be implemented upon approval by local and state officials in 2021. And then it goes on to say, however, the coalition also recognizes that local governments are grappling with financial impacts of COVID-19. Consequently, in order to properly implement recommendations that would incur new costs, such as investing in body cameras or other technology, it says a strong and focused effort must be made for state and federal funding to be provided to assist with these costs. And my recollection is that the purpose of that statement was similar to what we said earlier with Legislator Smith, which is just by putting it in there, we are just signaling to our partners on other levels that there is going to be a funding need in order for local government, not just ours, but local governments across the state, in order to implement these types of policies and invest in these technologies. They're going to need that additional funding source from either the state or the federal government. I think that was the intent.
One of the things, Matthew, that if Colin is still here,
he had to drop off, unfortunately.
All right. One of the things, and I believe Chief, you spoke about it, is the cost of storing the film.
The data.
And what I believe that I read somewhere that the county is looking for someplace because of the expense of the storage. So we may have a partner there.
There is conversation about a shared storage type of facility, and that would be the cloud storage that usually comes with the Axon product. Right. The Axon product is very, very expensive, but it is state of the art, body camera.
Right.
We're almost. I would think by the end of the month we're going to be done with getting feedback from our personnel as to how it worked for them in the field, taking a look at the different vantage points of the body camera video that we've had, and then we'll get the cost and the price points and a different mechanism of storage, and then also from a personnel standpoint at the police department, what it's going to cost as well to have somebody actually retrieve that data, have the supervisory authority to retrieve that data, and to provide that data to the district attorney for discovery purposes if they need it. So it's a very lengthy and involved process, one that we want to try to get right. Like I'll keep saying, the men and women of my agency deserve that, and the public deserves that.
That's right.
We want it to be a win-win. So we're trying to get it right, trying to provide a report to the board that we can kind of work through and figure out what the best product is, what it's going to cost, how do we get there as far as purchasing it, and the implementation. Once we figure out what we think we're going to use, then we have to get to work internally with the men and women in my agency to draft a policy, a collaborative policy with the PBA, and let's get it out there in the field and get working. That's the goal.
Is the DA still on the line with us?
Yes, Steve is still here. Steve Ronco.
Have you worked with communities where you're getting that kind of footage and
peak skill? And there's pros and cons to it. The pros obviously are we see exactly what the police see. The con is the cost and the manpower it takes to upload, watch, and transmit that footage for every case, not just, and for every investigation as well, to our office. And it's on my end as well. We have to watch everything. So those are the pros and cons of it. Chief Noble, I'm sure, would have to have more personnel dedicated to uploading booking video, 911s, radio transmissions, any dashboard camera, LPR, all the evidence that is listed under CPL 245. Somebody has to view it, somebody has to upload it and send it to my office. So it's very time consuming, but it's necessary.
I think that's though why we wanted to, like we stated earlier with the mobile crisis unit, it's important for the people reading the report from the town to hear the fact that there's realities, financial realities. Absolutely. And I think that was the only point that was trying to be made there. But I think, hearing from, from the police and from our board members and from others who participated in these conversations, I think the body cameras obviously provide a great deal of benefit.
I agree.
Which I would want my town board to do with anything that they did. I would want them to examine the issue, see what the ramifications are, figure out how we're going to pay for it or who's going to pay for it. So, that's the way I hope my town board approaches every issue. And I think you're doing that. I'm happy to hear that.
And Dax, I know you have a comment. Just quickly, it also says that the coalition encourages the town board to hold a special public meeting specifically to review the report and to accept public comments, and that's specifically regarding the body cameras.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for clarifying, and I totally understand it. Now I understand the wording was geared towards kind of nudging the state along because, obviously there are moving parts and we would need support in the measures. So I completely appreciate that. Chief Noble, thanks for that information, and I totally understand where you're coming from. And Mr. Ronco, thank you also. It definitely paints a picture of, it's not as simple as just getting the cameras. There are other, parts to it. Right. But I think that, anything worth doing is hard, right? So I definitely think that it is something worth pursuing. I think that, and Chief, you mentioned earlier about, defund, and I think that this is a way to get more funding. So, so I am definitely in support of providing the funding, and bolstering those partnerships to get that support through other partners, to make this happen for the town. So thank you to everyone that's, working towards that end. I look forward to hearing the report, and I'm definitely sympathetic, Chief, to you wanting to have a product that is, efficient and state of the art and a good tool for the officers. I'm in support of that as well.
Time, Tony, I'm not a magician.
Uh-oh. Now we're going uncensored. No, thanks, Dax.
Now that I've been upstaged.
Can we send the mobile crisis unit?
Yeah, to that end, and Councilman Diana, thank you for that segue, because that's actually the other comment I wanted to make. As someone in the field of healthcare and working with the mental health of students, I'm going to say that it's not an exaggeration to say that COVID
has created a situation for us, even here in the town, like we've never seen before. I mean, we're definitely dealing with some serious mental health concerns just within, the Yorktown Central School District. I don't even know what's going on at Lakeland, and honestly, I don't want to know. But I completely agree that the mobile crisis unit, it was a tool that I used as a mental health professional when I was in the city. It was a very useful tool. Westchester County should have one. We should be working towards that end. If there's anything on my end that I can do to be supportive of that process, let me know. I definitely think we need a unit like that servicing our town and the other towns in Westchester. I think it's a great tool for the officers to use. I don't think that officers should be responsible for, servicing every mental health need of our town. It's just an unfair ask of the officers. So I just want to throw my 2 cents in on that. And I wanted to thank the coalition, just a blanket thank you to everyone. Rabbi Robbie, on a personal note, thank you for your invitation. I hope that there are more to follow in the future. And I'm glad to have been a part of the process, to continue to be a part of the process. I hope that, as many have said earlier tonight, that we continue to do this work in some way, shape, or form or fashion moving forward in the future.
Dax, thank you. We appreciate your participation. We appreciate your perspectives that you brought to us. It really helped our dialogue and helped us learn. So thank you very much. Any questions from the board or any comments from the coalition? Anything?
I just wanted to say thank you to Dax. I've learned a lot in this process, and hearing from you and from your organization was, really, at least for me, really insightful. So I just wanted to thank you.
Value. We got a lot of value.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay. Diana, who else do we have to speak?
Next, we have Tony Grasso.
If we can, Tony, if we can have you unmute, or Diana, can you unmute him? Or maybe we can have
Jenny
unmute you. We might beat him for that, though.
Jenny, can you unmute him?
You're working on it. It's the other one. That was the video. There you go.
Can I just say how much I love Alice's laugh? I gotta be honest. That's the best laugh. I'm telling you, it's infectious. All right, that's
got you now, Tony. Can you hear us?
I'll mute.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
You're ready. There you go. You two look so
Thank you.
Okay, you don't need me anymore, right?
Right.
Let
me first start with the chief. The 8 highlights that you chose were perfect. Having been with the town for many, many years, and having served with the town as long as Alice has, I always had a great interest in the police department, and being responsible for the accreditation was the first thing we did back in the 80s. People are asking for detailed report on your highlights. And to say, are they entitled to it? I don't know. I look at the police department as a paramilitary organization with civilian oversights, which is the town board. If you want to add another level to that, just below that with the coalition, that's your choice. But I think it'll be just a platform for people to get engaged in that shouldn't. I've known personally the last 6 or 7 chiefs of police. We have had high quality people in those positions. I can't name one that was not. Chief Morgan was there when I got involved. And we implemented with the town board at that time, under Nancy Elliott, to upgrade the police department. We had specific things that we wanted done, and they did it. This goes all the way up to Chief Noble. I have not been involved with the chief there other than saying hello to him, how you doing? But I know most of the officers that came in under my time. In fact, one of your lieutenants at the last public meeting we had came over and said, Tony, thank you. You took me on 38 years ago, and now I'm a lieutenant and I'm happy in the department. I think our department is the finest department in the county, if not the state, when you consider all that it does. But I dislike having civilians involved that are not elected by the people and for the people. That's why we elected our town board. Now, there are certain things in here, Chief, that, yes, you probably should be implemented. To me, there's no place, for instance, for racism. If anyone has experience with racism, you're looking at them. The color doesn't matter. Italians were discriminated against, the Irish were, the Jewish people were, and it goes on and on. But what did these races do? They upgraded themselves. That's part of the problem. Education. And we have teachers that don't want to teach, but they want to teach what they want to teach. I just finished reading 1776. There was nothing in that book that I wasn't taught when I was raised. And at 94 years of age, thank God I still have my senses and that I could speak out in the manner that I do. So please, let's not look at this personal. Let's look at this, what's good for the whole. Reports are necessary, but there are certain reports that are not for your eyes. When President Truman asked me to serve in the armed forces, I couldn't refuse. I would have liked to refuse, but the job that I had to do was done to give all of us the freedom we enjoy today.
Yes.
What freedom goes responsibility.
Oh, hallelujah.
And the responsibility falls on each parent, each grandparent to help our children with the truth. Not what they would like to do, but with the truth. And with that, we can live another 250 years.
Yes.
So please, as far as the cameras are concerned, I'm in favor of it. But if this is a state recommendation, then let the state come up with the money with the feds. We're the ones that are going to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Every time they say we need more taxes, we pay for it. Money is printed, but when you print money, it only adds to inflation. Just look at gasoline. And I'm not picking at anybody politically, but gas prices went up 30, 40 cents. Why? Why? You know the answer why, but I'm not going to get into that. I have a great deal of respect for the police department, and please, the town board are the police commissioners for this town, and that's the only way to keep it separate from the average public. But the public has a right to know what's going on. So please, thank you for getting me on late, Diana. I'm sorry. I was just busy with my new friends, the doctors.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Grasso. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
And
And
Jenny.
please thank Jenny for us.
That's my tech representative.
Most any questions from the board for Mr. Grasso? Any questions from the coalition? No.
I don't have any questions, Supervisor. I'm going to have to jump off here with this silly winter business that I have.
Yes, sir.
I just want to real quickly say thank you to the coalition and everybody that participated in this conversation. I want to give a big shout out to our police department, to our chiefs, to our chief, and all of our officers there. And keep up the good work. The pandemic is going to cause a lot more mental health issues than I believe that we are aware of. And the training that is going to be needed to handle that is going to be, number one, expensive, but needed. I hearken back to the one story that was read at one of the meetings where the police department responded to a subject that had some mental health issues. And from what I can see and what I've heard and what I've researched, that particular case was handled textbook with the discipline and the training that our police department has and continues to have. So the cameras are going to be another tool in the toolbox. Unfortunately, all the tools cost money. And, you know, the state comes up with these mandates or suggestions. And as Tony just said before, maybe they should buck up a little bit here and provide some of the help to our police departments rather than individuals saying, let's defund them. Those are a couple words you'll never hear me say. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that we should give our police department more money for training and exercises.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump here, and I'm sorry for jumping in like that. But
no problem.
I want to thank everybody once again. Everybody's done a great job. The conversation has started. I'm sure it's not going to end. And it's been a great civil experience. And I want to thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, Tommy. Supervisor Slater?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one other question?
Yes, sir.
The chief mentioned tracking. I was under the impression we already had some sort of tracking. But if we don't, I think that's a very important point. And somehow we should get together with the representatives and our state senators to look at this thing and give us the proper funding, even though it'll come out of our pockets, and get that done, because it's going to be good for the town, it'll be good for the county, it'll be good for the state and the nation. So let's get that tracking and as soon as we can. And as I say, I thought we already had something like that.
Are you referring to the data tracking?
Well, the data tracking and there are other tracking methods that we have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Grasso. Diana, do we have another person who wants to speak tonight?
That's all I have on my list. So is there anybody that I happen to miss? No. The only thing, we do have the letter.
That's right. We do have a piece of correspondence.
That's right.
This is a letter from Stephanie Iannaco. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. To the members of the Yorktown Coalition and Community Safety Engagement, let me start by saying that I personally have had nothing but good experiences with YPD. As an active member of the Yorktown Relay for Life Committee, I know that our police department has a strong bond with most of our community. But I also know that people in this town who have not had the same positive experiences as me, and I want to be part of the work that strengthens the bond with our police department and every member of our Yorktown community. I agree that we have a strong department, but I believe that there is always an opportunity to learn, grow, and get stronger as situations evolve. One thing I would very much like to see from this report are details. It is lacking details. A few bullets after all these months of work just doesn't suffice. There should be timelines built in, expanded training spelled out, and accountability measures built in. Without timing and accountability, this seems like lip service. My biggest urge is to increase the amount of data YPD collects. I found it almost insulting to see the bullet that reads, acknowledge that racial profiling is prohibited. Is that it? We're going to remind people and then move on? Does racial profiling happen in Yorktown? I don't know, and none of the reports that Chief Noble presented show that it doesn't. There was no data around routine traffic stops by our officers to show in black and white what it does not happen here. That it does not happen here. Data should be collected from all traffic stops to give a clear picture of who the police are proactively interacting with. Gender, ethnicity, and age should all be collected and reported out on a quarterly basis. Ideally, the statistics should be close to the makeup of Yorktown. Without those reports, we cannot, with 100% certainty, say that profiling of any kind does not happen in our town. The chief takes great pride in his department, as he should, and was visibly upset when early in this process someone asked about racial profiling in Yorktown. His statement was clear. Racial profiling is illegal and doesn't happen here. But simply saying something is illegal doesn't stop it from happening, and if it did, we wouldn't need police officers. Everyone would simply act in accordance with the law. If it doesn't happen here, let's collect the data and present it to the community. As someone who works as a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional for a large organization, I understand how data helps us to see the truth and will allow us to celebrate our wins and acknowledge and fix our weaknesses. I sincerely hope that the community discussion around policing and increasing inclusivity in Yorktown does not end here. I would love to see events targeting those who don't normally attend Coffee with a Cop type events so that we can open up dialogue with the rest of our residents who deserve to feel safe in our great town. Thank you, Stephanie Ainako.
I'll jump in on that. I think, Supervisor, I addressed a lot of those issues. I think Amy brought it up early in the night. I think I spoke to a lot of these different issues. And like I said, as far as traffic stops, it's pretty simple. With the statewide data like tracks, if all they have to do is make the necessary adjustments where we could scan somebody's license, if all that information is on a state document, which a driver's license is, and we can just scan that into these self-populated forms, we're off and running. I mean, it's as simple as that. I've already articulated why we don't want to ask those type of questions on traffic stops or interactions. And like I said, I did address a lot of those issues earlier in the evening. Coffee with a cop, playing baseball with kids, pizza with the police, dining at Burger King to raise money. We're going to do National Night Out. Quite honestly, these are events that anybody can come to. I mean, it's open to all, and I mean, we want all different kind of, different folks from different walks, of life to come to these events, and that's what it's all about, to meet us and speak with us and get to know your local police. So we try to do that with the focus on the whole community, not just any one segment of it. So I'm not quite sure, at the end where that is getting at. But early on in the process, it was one of the meetings that you didn't mention here, Supervisor. It was it was the second meeting that I had. I met with the Interfaith Group shortly after, the George Floyd. And then after that, we met with Yorktown for Justice, just Yorktown for Justice. And Ms. Harrigan brought up the part about the acknowledgement of racial profiling. And I wouldn't say I was visibly upset. I was incredulous because I thought to myself, who the hell does that? I mean, that's where I was coming from. Who, that's just, it's illegal. It's wrong. It's something you're going to lose your job for, your career. To think we have somebody of that character on our force. But after that, I thought about it, and I actually exchanged emails with Ms. Harrigan, and that was the impetus for adding that to our department manual. So, you know what? I did listen, and I did, make that adjustment and incorporate that into our manual where it hadn't been. And it's short and sweet and to the point, and it addresses what you cannot do when you are given the badge and the responsibility of being a Yorktown police officer, as far as the racial profile. So again, I think I touched upon just about all of the points that she brought up, and I think I met Stephanie at a relay for. I think I took a picture with her and you, Jim, right? When I dropped off some dollars in your bucket down there back in May, that was Stephanie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So again, I had a great conversation with her, but and again, I think the incorporation of the data that I shared in those hours-long presentations, along with the synopsis or the summary, is going to go a long way to see that we really made the effort, and we're going to continue to, like we've discussed tonight.
I think for people, Chief, who weren't with us when you made your presentations, unfortunately, they missed out on a lot, because I think everything that you pointed to, much of it was stuff I didn't even know. But I want to help you here. I would not like to be stopped by a cop and for him to say, "Well, what color are you?" I would not want that to happen.
Exactly.
That would just,
right.
And maybe we can help you a little bit more, making sure your events get advertised on in addition to your website on the town's website on TV. So we can help that. That's something we can help you with.
Well, we actually get more hits than you do on your site with our Facebook page. Not to be, but
go there now, Chief. Don't go there.
But our TV station gets a lot of hits.
But no, we do a pretty good job of self-advertising. But there's always room for improvement.
We can help you a little bit.
Absolutely, and I'll take the help, especially from you. And like I said, after the presentation, you called me the next day, and that meant a lot. You were very complimentary as to what we put forth that night, and that meant a lot. Coming from you. So, and I know your wheelhouse is media, so I'll definitely take any advice that you have. But yeah, like I said, our social media presence with the Facebook page, we're doing a really, really good job, much better than a lot of other communities.
Really?
You take a look at their pages. There may be one or two that match us or exceed us, and part of what, and there are things that are not incorporated into this plan. But Paul, our youth representative, Tommy Nadorsky, our PBA president, you know what? We're looking to get into Instagram, and the PBA taking the lead on that. They are going to have their own page separate from the police department page. And I think if we tag team it in that way, and they provide the pictures and a little bit of, what we're doing at certain in live time and on Instagram, we listen to you. And like I said, Detective Nadorsky right there, he's on your screen. He's working on it with his team and the PBA, and we're hopeful to roll that out in 2021, as well. So
I'm talking about
things that aren't incorporated that we can add into this report. And part of it, I think, once you see the finished product of the recruitment video that we're currently getting out for Westchester County for the upcoming test, you can actually share it on your website as well, on your Facebook page once the finished product is done.
Oh, that's great.
There are efforts that are being made. This report came out, and I think everybody says, "Yep, we want to see it keep going." That's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And as far as timelines, well, heck, we've gotten several of these done already. We're working towards others, and we're going to continue on that path. So we do have timelines, and we are telling you when we're getting it done. Is there.
Well, I just want to thank your fellow police officers and lieutenants and sergeants. I remember when we first talked about this E203, and I was really happy because what I said was, good, now the world can see what I know, that your department is among the best. And I think you've shined a light on it, and thank you for being who you are. Thank you for the leadership and for the leadership of your men. You've all done a great job. I feel very comfortable and in my community, and I just look forward to continuing conversations, not just necessarily only with the police, but with the community on a whole.
No, thank you very much. Like I said, we always have a great dialogue, and it's nice. It's nice to know as a chief that I can talk to each member of the town board, and it's a two-way. You know what? You listen, and I definitely listen, but you all listen to me, and that's important. That's what we need to do. We talk about this locally, but that's what we have to do nationally. I think we got to stop arguing and yelling at each other and just listen and try to find common ground.
I agree.
And that was the goal here. That's where you have to. That's how you better yourself, and that's I'd like to think that's how I've gotten to be where I am right now. Is just my ability to listen, try to compromise, and to do the best for all involved. And I mean that's the goal, and I'm lucky to have surrounded myself with great people at the police department, from the guys who answer the calls to the guys who help me set policy and make decisions. The men and women in there are fantastic. And I've been fortunate enough to have town boards, including this one. And I mean, that's been, you guys have been very, very supportive. And you've helped me through this process, so I thank you as well. You know, and I'm not going to leave the coalition out. That's a thankless job you signed up for. It really is.
It is.
You know,
that's for sure.
It speaks to you that you wanted to get involved in your community and try to listen and try to work with us to make things better. And I think the final product really helps make Yorktown better and sets us on a good path. So again, it's like I said, it's been a good process. It really has for us, and I'll leave it at that for now.
You know, Chief. One of the things listening to the comments tonight that it reminded me of, and it's a lesson that I can never stop learning, and that's, and you know this, and Alice, you and I talked about this earlier today. Sometimes we're in this vortex, and we think everyone knows all the things that we know, and they hear the things that we're saying, and they're reading the things that we're reading, but that's not true.
Sure.
And it falls to us as leaders of the community to take a minute, pause, and actually say it, and not just assume that people already read it or heard it, and maybe they heard it the first time, but they didn't remember it. And it's actually, I want to thank Mike Matone, because Mike, his comments, it was like he slapped me across the face, quite frankly, because we spent so much time during this process. And Chief, you invested so much time in this process, creating your presentations and doing a great job presenting the data that you shared. But it doesn't mean everyone heard it, and it doesn't mean everyone saw it. And so it was an error, and I take full responsibility of not making sure it was included as this draft was published. But we have to take time, I think, to pause and take the time to make sure that we say, hey, these are the things that we've done. These are the things that we've accomplished. And I think by doing that, obviously you're ahead of the curve. Your agency's ahead of the curve in so many ways. I think that's one of the things that we've learned during this process. And we're so lucky and blessed to live in a community with a law enforcement agency like yours. But it doesn't mean we can't take a minute to articulate what it is that we did to the residents of our community. Because I think, as we've heard here, it helps them understand it, and it also comforts them. It comforts them knowing that we've got a police agency and a leader at our police agency who's not one step ahead, more like 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. This is a thing that I think, frankly, I hate using the word government, but government doesn't do well. We do not take the time to make sure that the people that we represent, the people that we serve, we don't take the time to make sure they understand all the things that we're doing. And so, based on the conversation I heard tonight, I do think that's something that we can do better, myself included, and in many aspects of town government. And from your standpoint, you do such a good job communicating with the public and putting forward these community outreach events and efforts. But there's other things that your agency does that are really top notch, and it's not just pizza with the police or coffee with a cop. And I think it's important for us to take the time, and this is why I really enjoyed this process, to look at them and to hear them and to learn about them. And so that may be something, I think, moving forward, it makes sense for us to do more frequently. Just to say, here's, whether it's data, statistics, or policies that I know that you've always published, shared, you've never hid behind them. The use of force policy, as you said, is right on the PD website, right there. Anyone can go look it up. But I think, and it's no fault of anyone. Sometimes we have to tell people to go and say, hey, it's right here. Here it is on the silver platter. And so maybe that's something, as we continue to do this assessment and evolve and learn and listen, that's something that we can do better on a number of different levels, not just specifically for the police department,
right.
for town hall here as well. I want to be very clear on that. This is not a criticism whatsoever. But that's one of the things that I heard tonight. The other thing that I heard tonight is obviously the New York State forms, the TRAX forms, right, Chief? Maybe we can insert that into our recommendations to make sure that we encourage the state to modify that process, to your point, so it automates the data collection, and we're not doing it in an invasive way. We're not doing it in a dangerous way. We're not doing it in a dangerous setting. And so I would like to include that as part of our recommendations. And I think that was a great point that was raised, because that's going to help our data collection. And so I would like to see that included personally.
Yeah, I agree.
And yes, Jimmy.
I just want to say this has been an experience, this coalition. And I am pleased that I've been able to be a part of this. And I mean, Chief, one thing that I've learned through every session, people think you do a good job. Mm-hmm. I think you're okay where that's concerned. You allowed me to make you feel incredulous with a very tough question it was for me to ask. So I appreciate that as well. I love the fact that we have a plan beyond the mobile crisis unit, that it's not going to end there if we don't get the mobile crisis unit. You guys know that that's extremely important to me, as it seems to be for everybody. But I think the most important thing we learned tonight was that YPD's social media is better than the town's.
Oh, that is so sad.
You had to go there, Jimmy. You had to go there.
You put me on this coalition, man. So.
Yeah, it's true. I deserve that one.
But I will say this, that if it is something that you want to continue, I am certainly willing to serve the town in this regard again.
Thank you, Jimmy. And thank you to all the members of the coalition, because this was a very, I think, educational experience on so many levels. But we learned a lot. We learned a lot about each other as neighbors. We learned a lot about our community. We learned a lot about how things work within the town of Yorktown. And you know, we definitely had conversations that shed light, whether it's on police matters or societal matters. And it's important that we have those conversations. It's important that we don't shy away from them. And they could make people uncomfortable. And I get that. But it doesn't mean that you should not have the conversation. And I think it's very important for us to continue in that light. And I want to thank again, not just the members of the coalition, but the members of the public who've been a constant presence throughout this process. And of course, I want to thank Steve Ronco from the DA's office, who's been with us many a times. And I also really want to thank our chief of police, because he did a great job through this entire process. And to what Councilwoman Roker said, we had a lot of confidence coming in, knowing the level that the police department operates on. And we saw that through your presentations and the way that you articulated so many policies that you've implemented, but also looking ahead to the future. And so to the chief of police, to our chief, Robert Noble, a big thank you for doing just a great job. And yes, I'm sorry.
One last thing. I know I talk about policies, and I just want to show you. I don't know if you can get a flavor, but
it's a big book.
No, it's a big book. It's in my office too.
It's a big book. And like I said, the commitment is there, the training, the policies are very good. And as I will say as many times as you let me, I'm surrounded by great people, people who answer the calls for service out there in the community. They're just, whether they're in their early 20s or they're trending towards 50, they're of high character. Many of them are homegrown, and they have skin in the game in this community. And that's why Yorktown is and will remain a special place to live, work, raise your family, and visit. So thank you very much. Thank you for all your kind words and support. Thank you. And one of the nicest things was that, even a lot of the comments or the suggestions were prefaced by, hey, our department, I know we have a good department, or hey, our department's great. And, you know, that didn't go unnoticed. It was, you know, it was very respectful, and thank you very much. Thanks for the support.
Any other, Ackerman, did you want to add anything?
Matt, if I might?
I think Jay wanted to finish something first.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jimmy?
But I think Jay was finishing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make one point because one of the speakers brought out data and data compared to Yorktown population, or census tract data, which is the way we normally do it. First, remember Mark Twain. There are lies, damnable lies in statistics. Data without data analytics is useless. When you use census tract information, especially with policing, it's only valid in isolated communities. We have to remember, Lowe's is regional. The JV Mall is regional. Route 6 and Route 202 are major routes that go through Yorktown to Connecticut. So you cannot look at raw data without real data analytics. It will give you bad information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopstein.
He's 100% right.
You know, I think COVID has taken us down some roads that we never thought we'd go down this last year and this year. Matt and I were talking earlier today, and I said, I got to think that when you were told that you had to shut down the town, what went through your brain?
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you right now. It was intense. It was definitely intense, but you know, we had I was lucky because I had a great colleagues around me. I had Chief Noble, who I spoke with. I spoke with you. I spoke with you, Councilman Roker. But it was, you know, it was definitely and remember, I was only on for 2 months.
2 months.
When you got to declare a state of emergency and basically shut your community down in your second month, it was daunting, I think is the word. It was daunting.
Hey, Matt, they told you it would only be a week or two.
Well, yes, they did say
about a week.
Only a week, don't worry. But it was still daunting, and I think it was really once we got to like the end of April, and I was having this conversation with my wife the other night about COVID, and you know, because her birthday is in this middle of May, and we said, it'll be fine by your birthday, and then her birthday came and went. And then, it'll be fine by here. And then there came and went. And, you know, things just got, you know, it was daunting. The whole thing was daunting.
But through it all, our officers were there. We're out there. And we certainly appreciate that.
Nonstop. Absolutely. Good. Well, is there any other comments from any of the town board members? Any comments from the coalition? So from this point, the way that the process is supposed to work is that the coalition is now handing the ball over to the town board to approve the report, and then we will transmit that report once approved to the state of New York with a deadline of April 1. And so to the members of the coalition, a very grateful thank you for your efforts and for your time and for your energy and focus on this, because we couldn't have done it without you. And I mean that sincerely.
Thank you. Thank you, and
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I hope this is not the last we see of the coalition.
Sorry,
I
I'm
hope
out.
not.
I got an offer from White Plains.
We have a lot of dedicated, community-minded folk on this coalition. And I think you're going to see them again, one way or the other, in some fashion. So I know they're not going anywhere, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
And if anyone does want to see some of the members, you could join the Lions to see Jimmy. You could join Pam to see the rabbi. I'm sure he'd like to have his congregation a little larger. So there are definitely ways to get out there. Join Club Fit.
Rabbi and I could take it on the road.
There you go.
There you go. Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a
Thank
good
you very
night.
much, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys, stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
too.
Joe.